On a dark and rainy night in New York City, Maria Silva walked aimlessly along the wet streets. The car lights reflected in the puddles, creating a mosaic of colors that contrasted with her somber mood. It had been weeks since she lost her job, and with it, her apartment and stability. Now each step was a struggle against the cold and loneliness. As she moved forward, her thoughts tormented her. She remembered her days as a marketing manager, the important meetings and the goals she had achieved. But all of that now seemed like a distant dream. The company she worked for had shut down overnight, and her relationship had ended on bitter terms. Without close family, the streets had become her temporary home. Suddenly, she spotted a public phone on a corner. It seemed out of place in this age of cell phones, but to her it was a possible connection to someone, to something. Without much thought, she approached and picked up the receiver. She dialed numbers at random, hoping to hear a voice on the other end that could offer her a bit of hope. At the other end of the city, in a luxurious penthouse, Edward Adams was reviewing documents at his expansive desk. Despite his success as a businessman, a sense of emptiness constantly accompanied him. The unexpected sound of his phone ringing interrupted his thoughts. Curious, he decided to answer. "Hello?" he said firmly. Maria was surprised to hear a response. She hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Hello, sorry to bother you. I don't know who I'm calling, but I need help." The sincerity and anguish in her voice caught Edward's attention. Something inside him prevented him from hanging up. "Are you okay? What's going on?" Maria took a deep breath. She didn't know who this man was, but she decided to trust him. "I've had a rough time. I lost my job, my home. I was just looking for someone to talk to." Edward felt an unexpected empathy. Without fully understanding why, he decided to keep listening. "I understand. Maybe we can meet and talk more calmly." Maria hesitated, but something in her intuition told her to accept. "All right. There's a modest cafe downtown. Could that work?" "Okay. See you in an hour." After hanging up, both remained thoughtful. Unbeknownst to them, their lives were about to change in an irreversible way. In the heart of New York City, Edward Adams sat in his expansive penthouse overlooking the shimmering skyline. Floor-to-ceiling windows bathed the room in natural light, highlighting the sleek modern furnishings and the carefully curated art pieces that adorned the walls. Despite the opulence surrounding him, a palpable sense of isolation hung in the air. Edward, at 45, had built his reputation as the CEO of one of the nation's leading technology firms. His days were filled with high-stakes meetings, strategic planning, and endless streams of emails. Yet, beneath his polished exterior lay a void that success and wealth couldn't fill. His marriage had crumbled under the weight of his demanding career, leaving him estranged from his 2 teenage children who resided in a suburban neighborhood miles away. As he meticulously reviewed quarterly reports, the unexpected ring of his phone pierced the silence. Frowning, he reached for the device, curiosity piqued by the unknown number. "Hello?" he answered, his voice steady but cautious. On the other end, Maria's voice trembled with emotion. "Hello? I'm sorry to bother you. I don't know who I'm calling, but I need help." Edward felt an inexplicable pull to continue the conversation. There was something in Maria's tone, an authenticity and desperation that resonated with him on a level he hadn't felt in years. "Are you okay? What's going on?" he inquired, leaning back in his chair. Maria took a deep breath, her words coming out in a rush. "I've had a really tough time. I lost my job, my apartment. I've been living on the streets, and I just needed someone to talk to." Edward's heart ached at her confession. Despite the barriers that separated their worlds, he couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to do something. "I understand," he replied thoughtfully. "Maybe we can meet and talk more calmly. Would that help?" There was a moment of hesitation before Maria responded. "All right, there's a modest cafe downtown. Could that work?" "Okay. See you in an hour," Edward confirmed, already feeling a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced in a long time. After hanging up, Edward stared out the window, contemplating the serendipitous nature of the call. He decided to set aside his usual evening routine and make his way to the cafe, driven by a newfound determination to make a difference. Meanwhile, Maria navigated the bustling streets of Manhattan with a mix of hope and apprehension. The city's bright lights and relentless pace often felt overwhelming, especially now that she had no place to call her own. She arrived at the Corner Brew, a small, unassuming cafe nestled between towering skyscrapers. The cozy interior, with its warm lighting and inviting aroma of freshly brewed coffee, provided a stark contrast to the cold, impersonal exterior of the city. Edward walked in, immediately spotting Maria sitting alone at a corner table. Despite her worn appearance, there was an undeniable strength in her demeanor. He approached her with a genuine smile. "Maria?" he asked, extending his hand. She looked up, slightly startled, but managed a small smile in return. "Yes, Edward. Thank you for coming." They sat down, and after ordering their coffees, the conversation began to flow naturally. Maria shared more about her background, her successful career in marketing, the sudden collapse of the company she worked for, and the personal heartbreak that had left her without a support system. Edward listened intently, impressed by her resilience and honesty. "You're incredibly strong, Maria," Edward remarked, his voice filled with admiration. "Not many people could handle everything you've been through with such grace." She shrugged modestly. "I just try to keep moving forward, but it's been really tough." Edward leaned forward, his eyes reflecting a mix of concern and determination. "I want to help, not just with words, but in a meaningful way. I have resources and connections that could make a real difference. Would you be interested in working together on some projects I'm developing?" Maria hesitated, the weight of her situation pressing down on her. "I appreciate the offer, but I don't want to be a burden." "Please, it's not a burden," Edward insisted. "Your experience and skills could be invaluable to what I'm trying to achieve." After a moment of contemplation, Maria nodded. "All right, I'm willing to give it a try." They agreed to meet the following day at Edward's office, setting the stage for a partnership that would soon intertwine their lives in unexpected and profound ways. As Edward left the cafe, a sense of anticipation filled him. He felt that this chance encounter with Maria was the beginning of something transformative, not just for her, but for himself and his company as well. Maria walked away from the cafe with a glimmer of hope. For the first time in weeks, she felt that her situation might be turning around. The path ahead was uncertain, but with Edward's support, she believed she could reclaim her life and make a meaningful impact. The next day, Maria arrived at Edward's office with a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. The towering skyscraper loomed above her, its glass facade reflecting the bright morning sun. Taking a deep breath, she stepped into the sleek lobby, where a friendly receptionist greeted her with a warm smile. "Good morning, Ms. Silver. Mr. Adams is expecting you. Please take the elevator to the 25th floor." Maria thanked her and made her way to the elevator, her heart pounding in her chest. As the doors closed, she glanced at her reflection in the mirrored surface, straightening her simple yet neat attire. This was a stark contrast to the luxury Edward was accustomed to, but she reminded herself that she belonged there just as much as anyone else. When the elevator doors opened, she was greeted by a spacious, modern office filled with natural light and minimalist decor. Plants dotted the corners, and the open layout fostered a sense of collaboration and innovation. Edward stood by a large window, looking out over the city before turning to greet her with a genuine smile. "Maria, welcome," he said, extending his hand. "Thank you for coming." She shook his hand, feeling a bit more at ease. "Thank you for having me, Edward." Edward motioned for her to follow him through the bustling office. They walked past teams of employees engaged in lively discussions, their energy palpable. Maria couldn't help but feel inspired by the dynamic environment. "This is our headquarters," Edward explained as they approached a conference room where several team members were gathered. "I'd like you to meet the team. Everyone, this is Maria Silver. She'll be leading our new social initiatives." The room filled with warm greetings and handshakes. Maria felt a sense of belonging as she was welcomed by the team. They discussed various projects, from community outreach programs to sustainable business practices. Maria contributed her expertise, suggesting innovative marketing strategies to amplify their impact. As the meeting progressed, it became clear that Maria's ideas were a perfect fit for the company's vision. Her passion and dedication resonated with everyone present, and Edward couldn't have been more pleased. After the meeting, Edward invited Maria to his office for a private conversation. The space was both professional and inviting, with bookshelves lined with a mix of business literature and personal mementos. "Maria, I'm truly impressed with your insights today," Edward began, leaning back in his chair. "I believe your experience and vision will be invaluable to our initiatives," she smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "I'm excited to be a part of this, Edward. There's so much potential here to make a real difference." Edward nodded thoughtfully. "Absolutely, I want you to have all the support you need. If there's anything you require, be it resources, additional team members, or even assistance with your personal situation, please don't hesitate to let me know." Maria felt a wave of gratitude. "Thank you, Edward. Your support means a lot to me." They spent the next few hours outlining the initial steps for their projects, setting goals, and delegating tasks. Maria felt invigorated, knowing that her skills were being put to good use in a meaningful way. As the day drew to a close, Edward proposed they celebrate their new partnership. "Would you like to join me for dinner tonight?" he asked. "There's a great restaurant on the rooftop with a fantastic view of the city." Maria hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. "I'd love to. Thank you for the invitation." That evening, they arrived at the rooftop restaurant, greeted by the soft glow of string lights and the breathtaking panorama of New York City's skyline. The ambiance was perfect, intimate yet sophisticated, with gentle music playing in the background. They settled into their seats, enjoying the delicious meal and engaging in deeper conversations. Edward shared more about his journey as a CEO, the challenges he faced, and the personal struggles that left him feeling empty despite his professional success. Maria opened up about her own hardships, losing her job, her home, and the pain of a broken relationship that led her to the streets. "I've always believed that success isn't just about financial gain," Edward confessed, his eyes reflecting a mix of vulnerability and determination. "It's about the impact we have on others and the legacy we leave behind." Maria nodded, feeling a strong connection. "I agree. That's why I'm so passionate about these social projects. It's about giving back and making a tangible difference in people's lives." Their conversation flowed effortlessly, bridging the gap between their vastly different worlds. Maria felt a sense of purpose she hadn't experienced in a long time, and Edward found solace in her understanding and shared vision. As the night progressed, they discussed future plans, brainstorming ideas to expand their initiatives and reach more communities. The synergy between them was undeniable, and both realized that this partnership was more than just professional. It was a meeting of minds and hearts aligned for a common cause. When they finally left the restaurant, the city lights twinkled below them, mirroring the newfound hope in their hearts. Walking together through the quiet streets, they felt a sense of unity and determination to face the challenges ahead. "Thank you for tonight, Edward," Maria said softly. "I feel like we're on the brink of something great." Edward smiled warmly. "I couldn't agree more, Maria. Here's to making a difference together." As they parted ways, both felt a deep sense of anticipation for the journey that lay ahead. Little did they know, the decisions they were making now would set the course for their lives in ways neither could have imagined. If you're enjoying Maria and Edward's journey so far, make sure to subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support keeps these stories coming. The following day, Maria arrived at Edward's office with a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. The towering skyscraper loomed above her, its glass facade reflecting the bright morning sun. Taking a deep breath, she stepped into the sleek lobby, where a friendly receptionist greeted her with a warm smile. "Good morning, Ms. Silver. Mr. Adams is expecting you. Please take the elevator to the 25th floor." Maria thanked her and made her way to the elevator, her heart pounding in her chest. As the doors closed, she glanced at her reflection in the mirrored surface, straightening her simple yet neat attire. This was a stark contrast to the luxury Edward was accustomed to, but she reminded herself that she belonged there just as much as anyone else. When the elevator doors opened, she was greeted by a spacious, modern office filled with natural light and minimalist decor. Plants dotted the corners, and the open layout fostered a sense of collaboration and innovation. Edward stood by a large window, looking out over the city before turning to greet her with a genuine smile. "Maria, welcome," he said, extending his hand. "Thank you for coming." She shook his hand, feeling a bit more at ease. "Thank you for having me, Edward." Edward motioned for her to follow him through the bustling office. They walked past teams of employees engaged in lively discussions, their energy palpable. Maria couldn't help but feel inspired by the dynamic environment. "This is our headquarters," Edward explained as they approached a conference room where several team members were gathered. "I'd like you to meet the team. Everyone, this is Maria Silva. She'll be leading our new social initiatives." The room filled with warm greetings and handshakes. Maria felt a sense of belonging as she was welcomed by the team. They discussed various projects, from community outreach programs to sustainable business practices. Maria contributed her expertise, suggesting innovative marketing strategies to amplify their impact. As the meeting progressed, it became clear that Maria's ideas were a perfect fit for the company's vision. Her passion and dedication resonated with everyone present, and Edward couldn't have been more pleased. After the meeting, Edward invited Maria to his office for a private conversation. The space was both professional and inviting, with bookshelves lined with a mix of business literature and personal mementos. "Maria, I'm truly impressed with your insights today," Edward began, leaning back in his chair. "I believe your experience and vision will be invaluable to our initiatives." She smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "I'm excited to be a part of this, Edward. There's so much potential here to make a real difference." Edward nodded thoughtfully. "Absolutely, I want you to have all the support you need. If there's anything you require, be it resources, additional team members, or even assistance with your personal situation, please don't hesitate to let me know." Maria felt a wave of gratitude. "Thank you, Edward. Your support means a lot to me." They spent the next few hours outlining the initial steps for their projects, setting goals, and delegating tasks. Maria felt invigorated, knowing that her skills were being put to good use in a meaningful way. As the day drew to a close, Edward proposed they celebrate their new partnership. "Would you like to join me for dinner tonight?" he asked. "There's a great restaurant on the rooftop with a fantastic view of the city." Maria hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. "I'd love to. Thank you for the invitation." That evening, they arrived at the rooftop restaurant, greeted by the soft glow of string lights and the breathtaking panorama of New York City's skyline. The ambiance was perfect, intimate yet sophisticated, with gentle music playing in the background. They settled into their seats, enjoying the delicious meal and engaging in deeper conversations. Edward shared more about his journey as a CEO, the challenges he faced, and the personal struggles that left him feeling empty despite his professional success. Maria opened up about her own hardships, losing her job, her apartment, and the pain of a broken relationship that led her to the streets. "I've always believed that success isn't just about financial gain," Edward confessed, his eyes reflecting a mix of vulnerability and determination. "It's about the impact we have on others and the legacy we leave behind." Maria nodded, feeling a strong connection. "I agree. That's why I'm so passionate about these social projects. It's about giving back and making a tangible difference in people's lives." Their conversation flowed effortlessly, bridging the gap between their vastly different worlds. Maria felt a sense of purpose she hadn't experienced in a long time, and Edward found solace in her understanding and shared vision. As the night progressed, they discussed future plans, brainstorming ideas to expand their initiatives and reach more communities. The synergy between them was undeniable, and both realized that this partnership was more than just professional. It was a meeting of minds and hearts aligned for a common cause. When they finally left the restaurant, the city lights twinkled below them, mirroring the newfound hope in their hearts. Walking together through the quiet streets, they felt a sense of unity and determination to face the challenges ahead. "Thank you for tonight, Edward," Maria said softly. "I feel like we're on the brink of something great." Edward smiled warmly. "I couldn't agree more, Maria. Here's to making a difference together." As they parted ways, both felt a deep sense of anticipation for the journey that lay ahead. Little did they know the decisions they were making now would set the course for their lives in ways neither could have imagined. A few weeks into their partnership, Edward extended an invitation to Maria for a gala at his residence. It was an annual event that brought together New York City's elite, business magnates or investors, and influential figures from various industries. The invitation arrived in Maria's inbox, elegantly designed with gold embossing that hinted at the sophistication of the evening ahead. Maria read the invitation multiple times, her heart fluttering with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Despite her gratitude for Edward's support, the thought of mingling with such affluent and powerful individuals made her uneasy. However, she recognized the potential benefits this event could bring to their social initiatives and decided to accept, hoping it would provide valuable connections and insights. On the night of the gala, Maria prepared meticulously. She selected a classic navy blue dress that was both elegant and understated, opting for simple jewelry that complemented rather than overshadowed her ensemble. As she looked at herself in the mirror, she reminded herself that her presence there was a testament to her resilience and the new path she was forging. Arriving at Edward's residence, Maria was struck by the grandeur of the mansion. Nestled in the heart of Manhattan, the historic building had been meticulously restored, blending timeless architectural elements with modern luxury. The expansive gardens were illuminated by soft, ambient lighting, creating an inviting yet opulent atmosphere. A valet greeted her at the door, taking her coat with a courteous smile before guiding her into the foyer. The interior was breathtaking. High ceilings adorned with crystal chandeliers, marble floors that gleamed under the lights, and tasteful decor that spoke of both elegance and comfort. The sound of a live jazz band filled the air, adding a touch of sophistication to the evening. As Maria stepped into the grand ballroom, she was immediately enveloped by the lively chatter and clinking of glasses. Guests dressed in designer attire moved gracefully across the room, their conversations a blend of business, politics, and personal anecdotes. Maria felt a pang of self-consciousness, acutely aware of how different her current life was from the world she was now stepping into. Edward spotted her from across the room and made his way over with a warm smile. He was impeccably dressed in a tailored tuxedo, his presence commanding yet approachable. He reached out to take her hand, leading her into a circle of introductions. "Maria, I'm so glad you could make it," Edward said, his voice filled with genuine pleasure. "Everyone, this is Maria Silva. She's been instrumental in launching our new social initiatives." The room responded with polite greetings and warm smiles, though Maria could sense a few curious glances her way. She exchanged pleasantries with various guests, maintaining a graceful demeanor despite feeling somewhat out of place. Conversations flowed around her, touching on topics she was passionate about, yet she couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider in this world of privilege and influence. As the evening progressed, Maria found herself feeling increasingly self-aware. The lavish surroundings and the opulent lifestyles of the guests were a stark contrast to her recent struggles. She admired the generosity and vision of those around her, yet part of her questioned whether she truly belonged in this setting. Seeking a moment of respite, Maria made her way to the terrace overlooking the city skyline. The cool night air was a welcome relief from the bustling interior, and she leaned against the railing, gazing out at the twinkling lights below. The vast expanse of New York City stretched out before her, a reminder of both opportunity and isolation. Just then, Edward joined her, his expression softened with concern. "You seem a bit overwhelmed. Is everything all right?" Maria sighed, glancing down at her hands. "It's just, this place is so different from what I'm used to. Sometimes I feel like I don't quite fit in here." Edward nodded empathetically. "I understand. It can be intimidating, especially at first. But remember, you're here because of the incredible work you're doing. Don't let the surroundings make you doubt your worth." She looked up at him, appreciating his sincerity. "Thank you, Edward. It's just hard not to feel out of place sometimes." He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We all have moments like that. What matters is the impact you're making. Your presence here is a bridge between our worlds, and that's something truly valuable." Before she could respond, a voice called out from behind them, "Edward, I need to speak with you about tomorrow's presentation." Edward turned to see Robert Thompson, one of his longest-standing partners, approaching with a serious demeanor. Maria watched as he engaged in a brief but tense conversation with Edward before returning to the festivities. As Robert walked away, Maria couldn't help but sense an undercurrent of tension. She wondered if their social initiatives were facing resistance from within Edward's own circle, mirroring the challenges she had encountered in her past. Deciding not to dwell on her insecurities, Maria rejoined the party, determined to make the most of the evening. She engaged in conversations that aligned with her passion, sharing insights and learning from the experiences of others. Slowly, she began to feel a sense of belonging, recognizing that her unique perspective was both needed and valued. Later that evening, as the gala began to wind down, Edward suggested they take a final stroll through the gardens. The moon cast a gentle glow over the meticulously maintained grounds, and the sound of distant laughter lingered in the air. "Maria, tonight was a success," Edward remarked, his eyes reflecting a mixture of pride and hope. "I believe our efforts are resonating with the right people." She smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "I think so too. It was encouraging to see the interest and support from so many." Edward paused, turning to face her fully. "I want you to know how much I appreciate your dedication and the fresh perspective you bring. It's made a significant difference." Maria felt a warmth spread through her. "Thank you, Edward. I'm grateful for this opportunity and for your unwavering support." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the beauty of the night enveloping them. The challenges ahead were still daunting, but together they felt more equipped to face them. As they made their way back inside, Maria reflected on how far she had come. From the streets of New York to the halls of power, her journey had been anything but easy. Yet, with Edward by her side, she felt a renewed sense of purpose and determination to create meaningful change. In the weeks that followed the gala, Maria and Edward became increasingly immersed in their work, brainstorming ideas and planning initiatives that would positively impact their community. Yet, amid the excitement of their growing partnership, Maria felt the weight of an approaching storm. One sunny afternoon, they decided to meet in a public park to discuss the next steps for their social initiatives. The park was a vibrant oasis in the bustling city, filled with children playing, families picnicking, and the soothing sounds of nature creating a backdrop for their conversation. Maria arrived first, taking a moment to appreciate the fresh air and greenery. She settled onto a bench, observing the life around her, the laughter of children, the chatter of friends, and the sight of people enjoying the day. It was a stark contrast to her earlier struggles on the streets, and she felt grateful for how far she had come. When Edward arrived, he approached with a smile, his casual attire contrasting sharply with the formal wear from the gala. "Hey, Maria, I hope I'm not late." "Not at all," she replied, standing to greet him. "I just got here." As they sat down together, Edward pulled out his notebook, ready to dive into their plans. "I've been thinking about our outreach programs. I believe we should focus on partnering with local schools to provide mentorship and resources for students interested in technology." Maria nodded, her excitement palpable. "That's a great idea. We could set up workshops and even invite guest speakers from the industry to inspire them." Their conversation flowed effortlessly, and the more they talked, the more ideas blossomed. They envisioned a future where technology education was accessible to all, where young minds could thrive and dream without the limitations that their circumstances imposed. As they brainstormed, Maria's phone buzzed in her pocket. She glanced at the screen and her heart sank. It was an anonymous message, the same type she had received before. "Stop what you're doing with him. You don't belong in his world." Edward noticed her change in demeanor. "Everything okay?" She hesitated before responding. "It's just a message. Nothing important." "Are you sure? You seem off." Maria took a deep breath, deciding it was time to share her burden. "I've been getting these messages. Someone is threatening me about my past, trying to intimidate me into stepping back. Edward's expression turned serious. "That's unacceptable. We need to address this." Maria shook her head, a hint of fear creeping into her voice. "I don't want to create a scene or draw unnecessary attention. I've worked hard to get here, and I don't want anything to jeopardize that." "Maria," Edward said firmly, "you deserve to feel safe. We can't let fear dictate your actions. I'll help you no matter what it takes." His unwavering support gave her strength, but doubt still lingered in her mind. "What if this affects you? I don't want to drag you into my past." Edward leaned closer, his voice steady and reassuring. "This is about more than just you and me. It's about the work we're doing together, and I won't let anyone undermine that." Maria felt a warmth spread through her chest. "Thank you, Edward. Your support means everything to me." They continued discussing their plans, but the shadow of the messages hung in the back of Maria's mind. The park, once a place of inspiration, now felt tainted by the threat of her past creeping into her present. Later, as they walked through the park, Maria spotted a group of children playing with a technology kit designed to teach coding. Their laughter echoed around them, and for a moment, she allowed herself to imagine the impact they could have on young lives like these. "Look at them," Maria said, her heart swelling with hope. "This is exactly why we're doing this." Edward smiled, his eyes lighting up. "Yes, and I believe we can empower even more kids to explore their passions and reach their full potential." As they prepared to leave the park, Maria felt a renewed sense of purpose, but she also knew that the threat loomed closer. After parting ways with Edward, she decided to take action. That evening, she reached out to a local community organization specializing in support for those facing harassment. They provided resources, guidance, and a safe space to discuss her situation. Maria felt relieved to know that she wasn't alone and that there were people who understood her struggles. A few days later, Maria and Edward met again, this time at the office to finalize plans for their first workshop. Maria felt a surge of determination, fueled by the support she had received. "Are you ready for this?" Edward asked, a hint of excitement in his voice. "I am," Maria replied confidently. "I've been thinking about how we can engage the students and keep them interested." They dove into the logistics of the workshop, discussing materials, guest speakers, and interactive activities. As they worked, Maria felt the energy between them grow stronger, bolstered by their shared vision. But as the date for the workshop approached, Maria couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. The messages continued, growing increasingly menacing. She decided it was time to confront the source of her fears once and for all. In a moment of clarity, Maria contacted the police, reporting the harassment. They were understanding and promised to take her situation seriously. For the first time in weeks, Maria felt a sense of empowerment wash over her. She was no longer going to let her past control her. The day of the workshop arrived, and the excitement in the office was palpable. Maria and Edward welcomed a group of eager students, their eyes shining with curiosity and enthusiasm. As they introduced themselves and the agenda for the day, Maria felt a surge of hope and determination. Despite the challenges she faced, Maria knew that this was where she belonged. The threats from her past might still linger, but she refused to let them overshadow the bright future she was building with Edward and the impact they were making together. As the workshop unfolded, laughter and creativity filled the room, and Maria realized that she had the power to shape not only her own life, but also the lives of those around her. The day of the workshop was a resounding success. Maria stood in front of a room filled with eager faces, each child captivated by the world of technology unfolding before them. The energy was electric, and she felt a renewed sense of purpose as she guided them through the activities. Edward observed from the back of the room, pride evident in his eyes. However, amid the joy of the day, a storm was brewing beneath the surface. Maria received another anonymous message during the workshop, this one more threatening than the last. "You think you can escape your past? I'll make sure everyone knows who you really are." Her heart raced as she read the words, but she refused to let the fear consume her. She took a deep breath, focused on the kids in front of her, and pushed the message aside. The workshop continued with laughter and excitement, and for those few hours, Maria was able to immerse herself fully in the moment. As the day wrapped up, Edward joined her at the front of the room, applauding the students. "You all did an amazing job today. Keep exploring, keep learning, and remember that you have the power to change the world." As the children filed out, Maria felt a mixture of satisfaction and dread. She was making a difference, but the shadow of her past continued to loom over her. Later that evening, Maria and Edward met to review the workshop's outcomes and discuss their plans for the future. As they settled into a quiet corner of the office, Edward noticed her distracted demeanor. "Hey, you did an incredible job today," he said, his voice gentle, "but you seem a bit off. What's on your mind?" Maria hesitated, but the weight of her secret felt unbearable. "I received another message today during the workshop. It was more threatening than before." Edward's expression hardened. "We need to take this seriously. Have you spoken to the police again?" "I did," she replied, her voice shaky. "But part of me is afraid that bringing attention to it will only make it worse." Edward leaned forward, concern etched on his face. "Maria, you can't let this person intimidate you. You're doing important work, and you deserve to feel safe." She sighed, her heart heavy. "I know. I just wish it would all go away. I've worked so hard to get here, and I don't want my past to ruin that." "Listen," Edward said firmly. "You're not alone in this. I'm here to support you, and I won't let anyone undermine what you're building. Let's find a way to deal with this together." As they talked, Maria felt a flicker of hope. But deep down, she knew the confrontation with her past was inevitable. Days passed, and the threats continued. Maria took Edward's advice to heart, working closely with the police to gather evidence and document everything. Each day, she grew stronger, refusing to let the intimidation dictate her life. Then came the day of the board meeting, where Edward planned to present their new initiatives to his partners. Maria had been invited to join, and she felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. She knew this was an opportunity to further solidify their efforts, but she also felt the looming presence of the threats. As the meeting began, Edward stood at the head of the table, outlining their vision for integrating social responsibility into the company's mission. Maria joined him, presenting their successful workshop and the positive impact it had on the community. The board members listened attentively, some nodding in agreement. But as the discussion turned to financial implications, Robert Thompson interjected. "While these initiatives sound noble, I have concerns about their impact on our bottom line," he said, crossing his arms. "We need to prioritize our investors." Maria felt her heart race. She knew that change often met resistance, but the stakes felt higher today. Edward responded calmly. "I appreciate your concerns, Robert. However, I believe that investing in our community is not just morally right, it's strategically smart. Companies that engage in social responsibility see long-term gains." The discussion escalated, with board members divided. Maria felt the tension in the room, and the earlier enthusiasm began to wane. She decided it was time to speak up. "Everyone," she interjected, her voice steady but passionate, "I understand the importance of our financial stability, but if we don't invest in the community, we risk losing relevance. The world is changing, and we need to adapt. These initiatives are about creating a legacy, not just profits." Robert's expression hardened, and he leaned forward. "And what about the risks involved? You want us to put our resources on the line without guaranteed returns?" Maria felt the weight of his challenge. "Yes, there are risks, but there are also incredible opportunities. We have a chance to be leaders in the industry and set a precedent for others to follow." The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Edward met Maria's gaze, a look of unwavering support in his eyes. She took a deep breath, knowing this was a pivotal moment. Suddenly, the doors swung open, and an officer entered the room, disrupting the meeting. "Excuse me, I need to speak with Maria Silva." Maria's heart raced as she felt all eyes turn to her. "What's going on?" she asked, anxiety creeping in. "We've been tracking the anonymous threats you've received. We have reason to believe the situation has escalated. We need to discuss your safety and the steps we can take." Edward stood up immediately, his protective instincts kicking in. "What do you mean, escalated. The officer glanced around the room. "We believe the person sending the threats may be in the building." A chill ran down Maria's spine as the reality of the situation hit her. "What do I need to do?" "We need to move you to a safe location and ensure you're protected until we can resolve this," the officer instructed. Edward stepped closer to Maria, his concern evident. "I'm not leaving your side. We'll face this together." Maria nodded, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over her. The confrontation she had feared was finally here, but with Edward by her side, she felt empowered to take control of her life. As they left the boardroom, Maria felt the weight of the world on her shoulders, but she was ready to confront her past once and for all. With Edward's unwavering support and the police at her side, she knew she could face whatever challenges lay ahead. If you're enjoying Maria and Edward's journey so far, make sure to subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support keeps these stories coming. As Maria and Edward stepped out of the boardroom, the tension in the air was palpable. The police officer led them through the sleek corridors of the office building, ensuring that they were safe and out of sight. Maria felt a mix of fear and determination surging within her. This was the moment she had been dreading, but she knew it was also the moment for which she had been preparing. Once they reached a secure room, the officer closed the door behind them. "I need to gather some information and explain the next steps," he said, his tone serious but calm. Maria looked at Edward, who stood beside her, his presence a source of strength. "We'll get through this," he whispered reassuringly. The officer began explaining that they had been monitoring the situation closely and had identified a suspect connected to the threats. "We believe this person is someone from your past, someone who feels threatened by your current success," he said. "We've taken measures to ensure your safety and are ready to provide protection until we can resolve this." Maria felt a wave of relief wash over her. "I just want to move forward with my life and work," she said, her voice steady. "I refuse to let this define me." The officer nodded. "That's the right mindset. However, we need to ensure you're safe first. We can arrange for a temporary relocation if necessary," Edward interjected. "Whatever it takes, we will do it. Maria deserves to feel safe, and we won't let this person intimidate her." The officer noted down their concerns and made arrangements for additional security measures. After a brief discussion, they decided that Maria would stay with a trusted friend who lived outside the city for the time being, ensuring her safety while they worked on apprehending the suspect. As they prepared to leave the office, Edward turned to Maria. "I'll be right there with you. We'll make sure you're supported throughout this process." Maria felt gratitude swell within her. "Thank you, Edward. I don't know what I would do without you." Once outside the building, they were met by a police car waiting to escort them to Maria's temporary location. The drive was quiet, each lost in their thoughts as the city passed by outside the windows. Maria reflected on how far she had come, from the streets to advocating for social change, and how she wasn't going to let fear hold her back. Arriving at her friend's home, Maria was greeted warmly. She felt a mix of comfort and anxiety as she settled in. Edward stayed by her side, helping her organize her things and ensuring she felt secure. That night, they sat together on the porch, the cool breeze offering a sense of calm. "You're going to get through this, Maria. We'll take it one step at a time," Edward assured her. "I never imagined I'd find myself in this situation, especially after everything I've worked for," she admitted, feeling vulnerable. "Life is unpredictable," he replied, "but you've proven time and again that you're resilient. You've built something incredible, and no one can take that away from you." Maria smiled, appreciating his unwavering support. "Thank you for standing by me through this. It means everything." Days passed as the police continued their investigation, and Maria remained focused on her work. She refused to let the situation derail her efforts to make a difference. The workshops continued, and she poured her energy into inspiring the students, determined to show them that overcoming obstacles was possible. Finally, the day came when the police had a breakthrough. They apprehended the suspect, a former colleague from Maria's past who had been spreading lies and threats to undermine her success. The news brought a wave of relief and closure. Edward was by her side as they learned the news. "You did it, Maria. You faced your fears, and now it's time to move forward without looking back," he said, pride evident in his voice. "I couldn't have done it without your support," she replied, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you for believing in me." With the threat behind her, Maria felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She was ready to embrace the future and the impact she could make alongside Edward. Together, they continued to expand their initiatives, reaching more communities and empowering individuals through technology and education. As the months rolled on, Maria and Edward's partnership flourished, both professionally and personally. They discovered a deep connection that transcended their work, finding joy in each other's company and supporting each other through life's challenges. One evening, as they walked through the park, where they first brainstormed their projects, Edward paused and took Maria's hands in his. "I've never met anyone like you, Maria. You inspire me every day with your strength and determination." Her heart raced as she looked into his eyes. "You've changed my life in ways I can't even begin to describe. I never thought I could feel so empowered." Edward stepped closer, his gaze earnest. "I want to build a future with you, one where we continue to make a difference together. Would you consider that?" Maria felt a rush of emotions. "Yes, I would love that," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. With that affirmation, Edward leaned in and they shared a tender kiss, sealing their commitment not only to each other, but to the mission they had set out to achieve. Together, they would continue to forge ahead, turning their dreams into reality and inspiring others to believe in the power of change. As they walked hand in hand through the park, Maria felt a sense of peace and purpose that she had longed for. She had faced her past and emerged stronger, ready to embrace the bright future that awaited her. If you liked this inspiring story, subscribe to our channel and check out what we have for you and your grandchildren in the pinned comment below.